The chandeliers at Eco Convention Center burned like a second sun over Lagos, and the stage was set for the man the city called untouchable. Cameras panned. Influencers smiled. A live stream rolled to hundreds of thousands across Lagos, Abuja, Atlanta, and beyond. In a crisp midnight suit, Raymond Cole, billionaire, philanthropist, nation builder, raised a crystal trophy and began to speak about mercy and second chances. Then the giant LED wall behind him went black. A thin white progress bar appeared. A word blinked onto the screen in red: murderer. The hall inhaled as one. Security sprang forward. Photographers stood on chairs. Raymond's smile hardened, then cracked. At the foot of the stage, wearing a simple powder blue cotton dress and scuffed flats, the maid everybody ignored looked up with steady eyes. Ayobami said nothing. She didn't need to. The progress bar crawled to 98%. 99%. Raymond took one step toward her and whispered, not into a microphone but into the air between them as if the whole city couldn't read lips. "What do you think you're doing?" The bar reached 100%. The screen flickered, a nighttime road, rain on glass, a silver SUV easing through an empty intersection, a shadowed figure crossing. The lights in the hall died. Darkness swallowed the screams. 3 weeks earlier, the house on Bourdelin was cold even when the heat pressed like hands against the windows. Raymond liked it that way, air conditioners roaring, floors shining, schedules tighter than drum skins. "Silence is excellence," he'd say, sweeping through the foyer like a storm in a tailored suit. "I pay for silence." On her first morning, Ayobami learned how to fold napkins into lilies and how to stand still when scolded. She was 21, slight, cocoa brown, hair braided into neat cornrows that ended in beads like raindrops. She moved softly, like grace was a secret rhythm only she could hear. The head of staff, a stern woman everyone called Auntie Dupe, pressed a list into her palm. "Rooms first. Windows second." "Mr. Cole's office, never without permission," Auntie Dupe murmured. "He is particular." Raymond was more than particular. He was weather. Storms for breakfast. Lightning for mistakes. When a glass left a ring on his desk, he called Ayobami to stand and look at it, as if the watermark were a crime scene and she the suspect. "You don't belong in a house like this if you don't see things," he said. "Do you hear me?" "Yes, sir." "Speak up." "Yes, sir." He smiled without warmth. "Good. Learn quick. Or be gone." Every day Ayobami learned. She learned the way his watch face caught the light when he raised his hand. She learned the smell of his cologne before he turned the corner. She learned the new driver's name, Banjo, grizzled and quiet, eyes always on the road even when the car was parked. She learned that Raymond didn't like to hear the word sorry, unless he was the one saying it to a camera. She learned the house had a sound even when nobody spoke, the hum of machines working to keep the cold in and the world out. And she learned about the dent. It was small, barely a kiss above the front right tire of the silver SUV that only Raymond drove. She saw it when she wheeled the mop bucket past the garage that first Friday. The car's chrome was a mirror that made the dent look like a frown. She bent to pick something wedged under the wheel arch, a chipped bead clear like glass. "How did that get there?" she whispered, turning it in the light. "Move," barked Raymond from behind her. She jumped. He took the keys, eyes never leaving her face, and slid into the SUV. The engine answered like a trained lion. The garage swallowed the sound as he vanished into the city. "Don't ever linger in the garage," Auntie Dupe hissed later. "You want trouble?" "No, Ma." "Good. In this house, silence is safer than truth." Ayobami nodded and washed the bead in the sink until it showed her a tiny, trembling version of herself. She slipped it into the hem of her dress. When the time came, she would remember it existed. On Sunday, the staff ate in the back courtyard, where the bougainvillea flamed like gossip. Banjo sat apart, chewing slowly, listening to the radio on low volume, Yoruba news then American R&B from the 90s. When the others drifted back to work, he stayed, gaze fixed on nothing. Ayobami wiped her hands and approached. "Good afternoon, sir." He nodded. Do you like working here?" Banjo's laugh was a short cough. "Liking is for children." She hesitated. "Mr. Cole. He seems strict." "Strict people sleep well," Banjo said. "Guilty people keep the lights on." He stood before she could ask what that meant. The second week, Raymond's older sister, Liza, American accent, sharp bob, sharp tongue, flew in to help plan the Global Mercy Gala, where Raymond would be crowned Philanthropist of the Year. Liza called the staff by numbers. 2 coffee. 3 move the lilies. New girl, 4 right, don't hover. "Her name is Ayobami," Auntie Dupe said. Liza blinked as if names were a language she used to speak. That afternoon, Raymond overheard Auntie Dupe correcting the arrangement of books in his study. He made everyone line up, Dupe, the gardener, the laundry boy, Ayobami, and asked who had dared to touch his things. Auntie Dupe took the blame. Raymond dismissed the others, then turned on Ayobami at the door. You, he snapped. You think your face can hide your fear? Don't touch what you don't understand. She held his gaze just for a second. Something flickered in his eyes, surprised maybe that the girl did not shrink completely. He leaned close. You want to stay in this house? Be invisible. You're good at that. Use it. He didn't see her fingers curl, then uncurl like a promise she made to herself. Invisible people see things. In the quiet hours before dawn, cleaning the study, Ayobami noticed a drawer whose handle barely moved. The lock had a hairline crack like something forced had kissed it once and left a scar. She dusted around it each day, never touching, until a stormy noon when Liza's voice ricocheted across the house and Raymond's anger dragged all attention to the foyer. Ayobami slid a thin ruler from her cleaning caddy, slipped it into the crack and heard the softest click. She opened the drawer an inch. Inside, a phone, older model, black tape across the brand name. A folded paper. A thumb drive the color of night. Footsteps. Voices. She closed the drawer, heart climbing her throat, and went back to polishing the window, smiling to her reflection like nothing had happened. That evening, she dreamt of rain on glass and a figure crossing a road, faceless and familiar. On the day of the rehearsal for the gala, Ayobami was sent ahead to the convention center to help Liza's team with last-minute setup. She moved between crates and cables, invisible and useful, watching how light turns truth into spectacle. A boy from the AV crew, Malik, Denver-born mother from Ibadan, smile like a sunrise, showed her the control tablet that ran the entire LED wall. Don't touch unless you want the city to catch fire, he joked. Fire can be good, she said softly, surprising herself. It cleans. The thought scared her a little. She turned away. That night, the house felt colder than usual. Raymond ate alone. Liza took calls on the balcony, voice like knives. Banjo parked the car and sat in the dark, hands on the wheel, eyes open as if sleep had become a stranger. Ayobami tiptoed into the study and opened the drawer again. She took the paper first. A receipt, water-stained. Morningstar Bakery, a place near Yaba, dated the night of a storm 2 months earlier. Under it, a traffic camera screenshot, blurred but clear enough. A silver SUV at an intersection, timestamped 2:11 a.m. The thumb drive was warm in her hand. The phone's battery, against all odds, held a thin sliver of life. She powered it on. Messages bloomed like bruises. One thread, unsaved number. You can never outrun your name. Don't call me that. It's Raymond now. You think changing your suit changes your soul, Remy? Her breath caught. Remy. Another message, we saw the news. Hit and run in Yaba. You were out. Explain. No reply. A voicemail icon blinked. She pressed play and held the phone to her ear, the way children hold seashells to hear the ocean. Static. Rain. An engine. Then a man's voice, Raymond's voice, low, controlled in the way drowning men are calm. Listen. The cameras on Herbert Macaulay are blind in the rain. I checked. There's a dent, but it'll buff. If anyone asks, I was home. Do you hear me? Liza will handle press. Banjo, a pause. Banjo keeps quiet. He always keeps quiet. The message ended. The room was suddenly too small. Someone was in the doorway. Ayobami spun. Banjo stood there, shadow stretching long, a sadness in his eyes that didn't belong to one man alone. He closed the door behind him and leaned on it as if the past were trying to walk in. You shouldn't be here, he said. I could say the same for you, she whispered, fingers closing over the thumb drive. Banjo exhaled. You think that is the worst of it? He nodded at her hand. You think rain and a road are the darkest things in this house? Her pulse thudded. What do you know? What I've known for 15 years. He looked older than he had that morning, like truth had weight and he had carried it too long. The man you call Raymond Cole is not who he says he is. Ayobami swallowed. His messages said, Remy. Remilikan Ajayi, Banjo said, each syllable careful, respectful, as if speaking a name at a graveside. He was a driver in Ibadan before Lagos swallowed him whole. The real Raymond, Banjo's voice broke and came back repaired with wires. He is the reason there's money now. My God, she breathed. What happened to the real? Banjo held up a hand, palm trembling. Some secrets are locked because the key is blood. They stared at each other, the air between them humming with all the things neither had dared to name. Why are you telling me? she asked finally. Because I have watched that man break people carefully like a craftsman, Banjo said. I have watched him call cruelty efficiency. I have watched you be quiet in a way that is not fear but patience. And because the river always returns what it takes. He glanced at the door. The gala is in 3 days. If you mean to pull a thread, do it fast. When he left, Ayobami slid down the wall and sat on the polished floor, the house's cold seeping into her bones. In her hem, the tiny bead she'd found clicked softly against the tile like a clock. Invisible people see things. 3 days later, she stood at the foot of a stage as a city cheered for a man built on borrowed names. The control tablet weighed nothing in her hands. She did not look at him. She didn't need to. The screen behind him went black. A red word bloomed. Murderer. The progress bar crept forward. Raymond stepped toward her. Stop this, he hissed. His breath smelled like mint and panic. Ayobami lifted her chin. In her eyes he saw the thing that truly frightened him. Not anger, not even hatred, but certainty. 100%. Rain on glass. A silver SUV. A figure crossing. The lights died. A power cut. A scramble. 100 voices rising like a single wave. In the sudden dark, a hand seized Ayobami's wrist, strong and desperate. Hot breath at her ear. A voice she knew too well, stripped of charm, raw as a wound. If that footage plays, Raymond whispered, it won't just end me. It will bury the truth you're not ready to learn. The generators coughed. The screens began to reboot. Ayobami turned to face him, heart hammering, the thumb drive like a heartbeat in her pocket. What truth, she said. Raymond smiled, and in the half-light his face looked like two men wearing one skin. The truth about who you are. The generators coughed and held, pouring a thin honey of light over the hall. Security swept the aisles with flashlights. The giant LED wall blinked through its boot sequence like a waking eye. Raymond's fingers loosened on Ayobami's wrist as he put his smile back on, the one he wore for cameras and people who thought money meant virtue. She didn't step back. What truth? She repeated, lower now. But the host on stage, a famous comedian in a gilded agbada, filled the space with nervous jokes. My people, small technical wala. Give us 2 minutes. Liza climbed the stairs, whispering orders that sounded like threats. Malik and 2 AV techs sprinted along the back rail, checking cables that didn't need checking. 1,000 guests, officials, business leaders, church elders, Nollywood stars and fashion kids with perfect hair, buzzed with the kind of excitement that tastes like fear. Ayobami tucked the thumb drive deeper into her pocket and stepped into the wings, invisible again, listening to the house hum. Her mind took her backward, the way the tide drags a shell back toward the sea even when the shell wants to stay. Makoko water used to slap under her window at night. She was 9 when the storm took the roof and her mother's sewing machine in the same week. Mama Kahine stitched church uniforms on a borrowed singer and taught Ayobami that even a torn cloth can be mended if you know where to begin. Start at the strongest seam, she would say, threading a needle by touch when Nipa failed again. Always start where the fabric still remembers itself. They moved to Ajij when the water rose too high. Her mother rolled akra before dawn to sell near the bus stop and laughed with neighbors at dusk even when her hands ached. On Sundays they walked to the small church on Oni Street where the choir sang like they were pouring light into a cracked world. On the last night Ayobami saw her mother alive, rain walked the streets like it knew everyone's name. Mama Kahine sent her to buy sugar from Morning Star Bakery while she finished a delivery. Hurry Ayo, she had said, tying a wrapper bright as harvest. The rain can wash roads clean, but it can also hide holes. Ayobami hurried. When she came back with sugar melting through the paper, there were sirens, the wet shine of broken glass, and a crowd frozen around an empty space on the road where someone had just been. The bakery woman, Mama Beezy, pressed her against her apron and cried into her hair. A car didn't stop, she murmured. A silver Jeep. It didn't stop. The police wrote things down. A neighbor took Ayobami home. An aunt came. The world became sharp and far away, like sound underwater. At the funeral, a bead from her mother's waist broke and rolled into a crack in the church floor. Ayobami knelt to search until Auntie pulled her up. Leave it, she said gently. Let what is lost be lost. She did not leave it. Years later, sweeping a billionaire's garage in a house colder than harm, she found a clear chipped bead beneath the lip of a tire and sewed it into her hem because sometimes the river returns what it takes. Banjo had known who she was before she knew what she was doing. That afternoon, 2 days before the gala, she had gone back to Morning Star Bakery for the first time since that night. The street was narrower than her memory. Bread smell wrapped itself around her like a memory that didn't need words. Mama Beezy looked older, but her eyes were the same. You're taller, Ayo, she said, holding her like time could be folded in two. Your mother would be proud of how your spine stands straight. Ayobami put the water-stained receipt on the counter. Morning Star. The date. The time. Do you remember anything else from that night? Mama Beezy set the receipt between two loaves as if warming it. Rain made everything look like a mirror. People said the car was from the new estate, the fancy one with gates that don't open unless you're the owner. The driver. Some said he was only a driver. Some said he was a king in a borrowed chariot. She lowered her voice. After the funeral, a woman came. She wore black like it was her skin. American accent. She asked questions without blinking and left without buying bread. Her hair in a sharp bob? Ayobami asked. Yes. Liza. That is the name. She looked at me like she was measuring my usefulness. Mama Beezy's mouth tightened. I told her I saw nothing. And maybe that was true. Rain can wash truth until it is only shape and fear. On her way out, a man in a cheap leather jacket leaned on a kiki and watched her go. He had eyes like broken bottle glass. She didn't know his name then, but she would learn it soon enough. Back at the convention center, Malik had shown her how easy it was to load content if you knew where to drop the files. They trust the show, he'd said. People always trust the show. He looked at her, concern blooming where jokes usually lived. Are you sure about this? About what? She asked lightly. My mother says when you scratch air you might catch hurricane, he said. I think you are scratching very hard. I am only cleaning, she answered. Just a girl with a mop. Yeah, he said softly. A mop that might knock down a palace. In the house, Banjo found her again in the study, fingers hovering over the secret drawer. He didn't stop her. He only stood guard while she read messages that tasted like rust. When she found the name Ramilikan Ajayi, he sat and massaged his hands as if ghosts lived in his knuckles. 15 years ago, he said, Remy drove the real Mr. Raymond Cole, white, kind, a philanthropist with quiet money, on a road to Ibadan. Kidnappers came. The car went into a ditch. Only 2 people climbed out. He looked at the bookshelf, not at her. One man had a name like money. The other had a hunger stronger than his fear. The owner died, she said. Disappeared, Banjo corrected. Bodies drown even on dry land when the right people are paid. Liza knew a fixer. Remy wore Raymond's suit to the city and never took it off again. She stared at him. And you? I kept silent because silence fed my children, he said. I kept silent because sometimes men do not kill with knives. They kill with favors. He dropped his gaze. And because he knows the police who answer the phone and the pastors who bless the microphone. Then why talk now? He smiled without humor. Because the river is full. It is coming for the house. Ayobami saved the recordings from the old phone to the thumb drive because paper can burn and phones can drown, but thumb drives are stubborn creatures. When she slid it into her pocket, it felt like a small, heavy promise. Now in the wings, Liza's voice cut through the murmur. Where is the content team? She snapped. If that word appears again, we will be trending for the wrong reasons. She didn't say the word. She didn't have to. Malik shot Ayobami a glance that asked, Are we still doing this? She answered with the slightest nod. Fear rose like tidewater in her chest, but beneath it, something steadier held, the old lesson from her mother's sewing room. Start at the strongest seam. A security man approached Ayobami. He had the same cheap leather jacket as the man at the bakery. Madam wants to see you. He jerked his head toward a side corridor. His badge didn't match his clothes. Ayobami smiled politely and didn't move. What for? He stepped closer, too familiar. Don't ask questions. You are a maid, not a queen. Banjo appeared as if the corridor itself had coughed him up. She is working here, he said. With me. You can report to your madam that the backstage is under control. The man weighed Banjo with a long look and faded back into the crowd, his eyes promising he would be a future problem. Banjo didn't look away until the jacket disappeared. Friends of Liza, he muttered. Friends of anyone who pays. On stage, the comedian stretched his words like rubber. You know Lagos. Light goes, light comes back, but our hearts are steady ABI. Nervous laughter. Let's welcome our honoree again, a man who never gives up on Nigeria, Mr. Raymond Cole. The applause tried to sound genuine. It came out thin. Raymond took the microphone, calm as a lake in a painting. My people, we don't make progress without patience, he said, voice buttery. A little glitch cannot stop good work. In a minute, we'll continue with the story of mercy. He turned his head very slightly toward the wings and found Ayobami. The calm slid from his face for one heartbeat and then sealed itself back. The LED wall finished booting. The interface blinked. Malik's finger hovered. Ayobami nodded once. He tapped. Instead of rain and road, a simple white slide appeared first. A date. The night her mother died. Then a second slide, a hospital intake form with a name blurred out. Next, a low-res video from a small office, shaky and off-center, like the camera had been hidden in a plant. Liza sat at a metal desk. Across from her, a nurse in a pink uniform clutched a file. The audio was thin but clear enough. "We cannot release this," the nurse said. "There is a minor involved." Liza smiled like winter. "You can release anything if your conscience is compensated." The nurse hesitated. "The child?" "The child will be fine," Liza said. "She will be placed with family. The important thing is that the man who will save this city can do his work without old names dragging at his ankles." She tapped the file. "Delete this after you email it to me." The video cut to a photo. A newborn's hospital tag. Cole, a mother, behind a father, Raymond C. The hall gasped all at once like a lung forgetting how to breathe. Ayobami felt the ground tilt. Her name on a stranger's tag. Her mother's name. Another name that should not be there, a name that now lived in two bodies. She didn't know if her legs would hold. Banjo's hand steadied her elbow without eyes leaving the screen. Then another video started, older, grainier. A small church office. A man in a driver's uniform stood in shadow at the edge of frame, voice breaking like a tired rope. "Please," he said. "I cannot do this part. She is a child." Liza's voice floated back. "She is an answer. Raymond will give her school a future. The story will be simple, charity. Orphan saved. Nobody asks where she came from if she is quiet." The driver stepped forward into the light. It was Banjo, 15 years younger, grief in his face and shame in his hands. He looked at the camera, at whoever had hidden it, and said, as if confessing to a future he hoped would forgive him, "Her name is Ayobami." The room fell into a deeper silence than the earlier blackout. On stage, Raymond did not blink. If fear lived behind his face, he held it like a rich man holds a secret. He lowered the microphone. "In life," he said softly, "mercy wears many faces." In the wings, Ayobami's breath came back as a small, furious flame. Before she could speak, the leather-jacketed security man reappeared at her shoulder, and this time she felt something sharp touch her ribs through her dress, a quiet warning only she could feel. He whispered almost sweetly, "Walk with me, or your truth ends here." Ayobami froze. The cold press of the knife against her ribs stole her breath. Around them, the convention hall was a thunderstorm of voices, gasps, murmurs, and the low murmur of cameras trying to make sense of what they had just witnessed. The LED screen still glowed faintly behind Raymond Cole, caught mid-freeze on Banjo's younger face. The billionaire's smile was gone now, his expression unreadable, somewhere between rage and calculation. "Walk," the man with the knife whispered again. His voice was calm, like someone giving directions to a lost child. "Don't look around. Just walk." She felt Banjo's eyes on her. He knew something was wrong. He had been watching her since the moment the video began. When Ayobami took her first hesitant step toward the backstage exit, Banjo moved too. But Raymond's voice cut through the chaos. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm," he boomed, raising both hands in that politician's gesture he had perfected years ago. "Clearly someone here wants to destroy what we've built. But I assure you, nothing can hide from the light for long." He looked directly at Ayobami as he said it. Not at the crowd. At her. And in that glance, Ayobami saw the man he truly was. Not a philanthropist. Not a billionaire savior. But a man fighting for control of a crumbling story, the story that made him powerful. Banjo stepped forward, hand in his pocket. "Leave her," he said quietly, only loud enough for the man in the jacket to hear. "You don't want to do this here." The man pressed harder. "One more step, old man, and—" He didn't finish. Because at that exact moment, Malik from the AV team unplugged the main audio jack. A high-pitched squeal burst from the speakers, followed by silence. The lights flickered again and confusion rippled through the hall like a wave. Ayobami twisted her body sharply, elbowing the man's arm with all the force she had. The knife grazed her side but didn't cut deep. Banjo lunged, knocking the man into a stack of equipment. They crashed behind the curtain as shouts rose everywhere. "Security? Over here!" Malik yelled, pretending not to be part of it. He reached Ayobami's side and pulled her toward the exit door. "Run." Outside, the night smelled of rain and exhaust. Lagos lights glittered on the wet pavement like broken glass. Ayobami's heart thundered as they ran toward the staff parking lot. Banjo caught up, panting. "They'll come after you," he said. "You can't go home." "I don't even know what home means anymore," she cried. "Did you know? Did you know what I was to him?" Banjo's face was wet, whether from rain or shame she couldn't tell. "I knew pieces," he said. "But not all of it. I thought he adopted you from charity, God forgive me." Ayobami shook her head, trembling. "He killed my mother, Banjo. And his sister," she hid it all. He nodded, jaw tight. "Then you finish what you started. But be careful. You're not the only secret he buried." They reached Banjo's old Toyota, parked behind a billboard for one of Raymond's luxury estates. He unlocked it fast, ushering her inside. Malik followed, glancing over his shoulder. "Where are we going?" Malik asked. "Somewhere quiet," Banjo said, starting the engine. "Somewhere the Cole family doesn't own." The car merged onto the highway. Lagos blurred by neon lights, okadas weaving through traffic, a gospel song drifting from a nearby car radio. Ayobami sat in the back seat, clutching the thumb drive like a lifeline. "He said something before the power went out," she murmured. "He said it would bury the truth I'm not ready to learn." "What does that mean?" Banjo didn't answer immediately. The wipers squeaked across the windshield, rhythm steady as a heartbeat. Finally he said, "You ever wonder why your mother went out that night in the rain?" Ayobami frowned. "She said she was making a delivery for the church choir. Uniforms." Banjo's grip tightened on the steering wheel. "The choir didn't order anything that week." Malik glanced at him. "So what was she delivering?" Banjo's voice was low. "A letter. To a man named Raymond Cole." Ayobami's world tilted. "What?" "She knew," Banjo continued, eyes on the road. "Your mother found out something about Remy, about the switch. She worked as a seamstress for the sea." A sharp crack split the night. The windshield exploded. "Down?" Malik shouted. Banjo swerved hard, the car jerking toward the shoulder as another bullet punched through the back window. Ayobami ducked low, glass cutting her palm. Through the rain she saw two motorcycles closing in, black helmets, no plates. "They found us," Banjo hissed. The car screamed down the expressway, tires spitting water. One of the bikers came alongside, raising a pistol. Banjo jerked the wheel, ramming him. The bike wobbled, spun, and vanished into the dark. The second one fired again. The rearview mirror shattered. Malik reached for the glove compartment, pulled out an old wrench and hurled it through the window. It hit the rider's face shield, just enough for him to lose balance. The second bike crashed into the divider, sparks flaring in the wet night. Silence followed, broken only by their breathing. Banjo slowed, pulling under an abandoned flyover. Steam rose from the hood. "We need to move before the police come," he said. Ayobami sat shaking. "Police? They belong to him. We can't trust them." She pressed a hand to her side where the knife had grazed her. Blood. Not deep, but warm. Malik tore a piece of his shirt and tied it around her waist. "Why go this far?" he asked Banjo. "Why protect her?" Banjo looked at Ayobami with an expression that was almost fatherly. "Because I watched her mother die for doing the same thing," he said softly. "And I did nothing." Ayobami leaned her head against the cold window. "So he's my father," she whispered bitterly. "The man who killed my mother is my father." Banjo didn't answer. The truth was heavy enough to fill the silence. After a moment, Malik spoke. "What's on the drive?" "There might be more than what played." Ayobami pulled it out, turning it over. "There's a folder I didn't open, confidential _. Maybe evidence. Maybe the rest of his crimes." Banjo nodded. "Then we need a place to open it safely. Somewhere with no cameras, no signal trace." He started the car again, engine coughing. As they drove deeper into the night, a convoy of black SUVs sped past in the opposite direction. Government plates, tinted windows. Headed for the convention hall. Raymond Cole was already spinning his story. And by morning, the news would say the sabotage was the work of hackers, trying to tarnish a good man's image. Ayobami looked out the window, rain sliding down like tears. "He took everything from me," she whispered. "But I'll take the one thing he values most." "What's that?" Malik asked. "His truth." Banjo nodded, eyes grim. "Then get ready, girl. When a rich man's truth dies, it takes an empire with it." The car disappeared into the wet Lagos night, leaving behind a city that still didn't know the storm was only beginning. Comment below with your thoughts and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so you don't miss what happens next in this shocking story. The car rumbled to a stop outside a dimly lit mechanic workshop at the edge of Yaba. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the smell of burning oil and wet concrete filled the air. Banjo switched off the engine, scanning the area before nodding toward the metal gate. "This place is safe," he said. "Old friend owns it. He doesn't ask questions." Ayobami followed him out, the thumb drive still clenched in her fist. Her side ached from the cut, and the bandage Malik tied was already darkening. She tried to breathe slowly, but every breath felt like fire. Malik helped her inside. "You need a hospital," he whispered. "No hospital," Banjo cut in. "They'll find her before the doctor finishes taking her details. We handle it here." The workshop was empty except for a few rusted car shells and a buzzing fluorescent light that flickered like it was afraid of the dark. Banjo walked toward a small office in the corner, turned on an old desktop computer, and gestured for them to sit. "Let's see what's on that drive," he said. Ayobami hesitated. Her hands were shaking. "Once we open it," she murmured, "there's no going back." Banjo met her eyes. "You already crossed that bridge when you pressed play at the gala." She nodded slowly and plugged in the thumb drive. The screen blinked. A single folder appeared, confidential _ Inside it were dozens of files, videos, scanned documents, photos. She clicked on one marked Project Sango's Contracts. It opened to reveal blueprints for a massive land acquisition project, with signatures from top Lagos officials, men and women whose faces she recognized from billboards and charity dinners. Every page carried Raymond's electronic signature and a government seal. "What is this?" Malik asked, leaning in. "Money laundering," Banjo said. "He uses charity projects to move money. All these contracts fake. Funds disappear into shell companies. He's been doing it for years." Ayobami opened another file, this one labeled Personal Video, for archive. The video began with Raymond in a dimly lit room, seated before a camera. His voice was calm, almost confessional. "If you're watching this, you've already learned my name isn't real. You think that matters? Lagos doesn't care about truth. Lagos only respects the man who feeds it. I built this empire from blood, but nobody wants to know whose blood. They want to eat, and I feed them. That's my mercy." Ayobami's stomach turned. She closed the file. "That's his real confession," Banjo said quietly. "Enough to destroy him completely. But if he's this powerful," Malik said, "he'll come for us before the truth reaches anyone." Banjo rubbed his temples. "We can't just drop it online. He controls the police, the press, and half the internet in this city. We need proof tied to something the public can't ignore." Ayobami looked at the screen. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and determined. "What about the international press?" she asked. "Or someone outside Nigeria?" Banjo nodded slowly. "That could work. But it means leaving this city tonight." Before anyone could say more, a phone began to buzz in Banjo's pocket. He glanced at it, unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Banjo speaking." A voice came through, low and calm. "You're still loyal, aren't you?" Banjo stiffened. "Remy?" "Don't use that name," the voice snapped. "You've disappointed me once. Don't make it twice. Bring the girl back, Banjo. You know what she is." Banjo's hand trembled. "She deserves to know the truth." "Truth?" Raymond's laugh echoed through the speaker. "You think she wants the truth? That girl is standing on stolen blood. Her existence is my greatest sin, and my only redemption." The line went dead. Ayobami stepped forward. What did he mean, stolen blood? Banjo looked at her like a man trying to choose between two terrible roads. "It's time you know the rest," he said. He pulled out an old, wrinkled envelope from his coat pocket and handed it to her. "Your mother gave me this the night she died. She said if anything ever happened to her, I should give it to you when you were old enough." Ayobami's hands shook as she tore it open. Inside was a letter written in faded ink. "Mayo, if you are reading this, I am gone. You were born into a lie I tried to keep from swallowing you. The man you will one day call benefactor, Raymond, is not only my curse. He is your father. You are the child of both my love and my mistake. I loved him when he was poor, when he was still Malik and Ajayi. I helped him build his first business with my savings. Then he betrayed me. He stole Raymond Cole's identity after the accident, left me pregnant, and ran. When I found him again years later, he had everything, and I had you. I went to deliver this letter to him to beg him to acknowledge you, but instead of mercy, he gave me death. If you ever face him, remember, silence is not strength. Speak even if your voice shakes. Mama." Ayobami pressed the letter to her chest, eyes wet, lips trembling. He killed her to protect his name, she whispered. And I've been serving him like a slave in his house. Banjo's voice was low. That's how evil hides, in comfort and titles. Malik placed a hand on her shoulder. So what do we do now? Ayobami straightened, the pain in her side forgotten. We take his empire apart, one truth at a time. Before Banjo could answer, headlights flashed through the gaps in the workshop gate. 3 SUVs. Engines idling. They found us, Malik said, pulling Ayobami behind a car frame. Banjo drew a rusted wrench from a toolbox. They won't stop till she's gone, he said. Bullets shattered the windows. Sparks danced across the floor. Malik grabbed Ayobami's hand, pulling her toward the back exit. Go! Banjo shouted. I'll hold them. No, she cried. They'll kill you. Banjo smiled faintly. They already tried once. Go Ao. Finish what your mother started. She hesitated for one heartbeat, then ran. Malik dragged her through the rear gate into a narrow alley. Behind them, gunfire roared like thunder. They didn't stop running until they reached the main road, panting, soaked, and shaking. Police sirens wailed somewhere far off. Banjo's workshop was burning. Ayobami turned once, tears mixing with rain. He died for me again, she whispered. Just like my mother. Malik took her hand gently. Then make it count. They flagged down a passing taxi and climbed in. Malik gave the driver quick directions toward Ikeja. We have one last person who can help us. Ayobami looked out the window, watching the smoke rise into the night sky. Who? Someone who used to work in Raymond's company, his accountant. She disappeared after trying to expose him 3 years ago. I think I can find her. Ayobami leaned back, clutching the drive and led her close. Her heart was heavy, but her eyes blazed with something new, resolve. The rain started again, soft at first, then heavier. And somewhere across the city, Raymond Cole stared at his own reflection in a darkened mirror, whispering, You can't run from blood, Ayobami. You are mine. The taxi rattled through the night, its worn tires hissing over rain-slick roads. Ayobami leaned her forehead against the cold window, watching Lagos glide past, neon signs, shuttered kiosks, pools of light reflected in water. Her mother's letter rested in her lap, edges damp from her hands. The words kept replaying in her head. He is your father. She turned to Malik. How do you know this accountant? I filmed a corporate promo for one of Raymond's charities 3 years ago, he said. She, Rita Oak, pulled me aside afterward. Told me the company books were full of ghosts. The next week she vanished. People said she ran to Ghana, but I think she's been hiding in plain sight. Banjo's wrench, Banjo's sacrifice, still haunted the car's silence. The driver's radio crackled with breaking news. Authorities are investigating an act of cyberterrorism at the Global Mercy Gala. Sources close to the billionaire philanthropist Raymond Cole claim a disgruntled employee may have orchestrated the hoax to extort money. Ayobami's stomach turned. He's painting me as a criminal already. Malik met her eyes. Then we find proof before his story becomes the only one. They turned off Awolowo Road into a quieter neighborhood. Malik told the driver to stop near an old tailoring shop with faded paint, Rita's stitches. A single bulb burned above the door. Wait here, Malik told the driver. They stepped inside. The air smelled of fabric and starch. A woman in her early 40s sat behind a sewing table, her head wrapped in a bright yellow scarf. She looked up slowly, needle frozen mid-stitch. Malik, she said. You brought company. This is Ayobami, he said. She needs your help. Rita's gaze lingered on the blood-stained bandage around Ayobami's waist, then on the small flash drive clutched in her hand. Let me guess, she said quietly. Raymond Cole. Ayobami nodded. Rita locked the door, pulled the blinds, and switched off the outer light. I used to manage his offshore ledgers, she said. When I found inconsistencies, I confronted him. 2 nights later, my husband was arrested for a drug charge that never existed. I dropped everything and disappeared. She opened a hidden compartment beneath the table and brought out a slim laptop. Let's see what you have. Ayobami handed over the drive. Rita's fingers moved fast, opening folders, scanning lines of data. These files matched the records I copied before I fled, she murmured. Bribes, fake contracts, death payouts. He's been laundering blood money through his foundations for over a decade. She looked up. Where did you get this? Ayobami hesitated. From his study. And from my mother. Rita blinked. Your mother? Ayobami unfolded the letter. Rita read silently, eyes widening. Kahind? She whispered. I remember her. She made uniforms for our first charity event. She was kind. He said she died in an accident. Her voice broke. I never knew. A heavy knock shook the shop's door. Everyone froze. Rita motioned them toward the back. Go. Out the side. Malik peeked through the curtain. Two men in black coats stood outside, their car idling across the street. We've been followed. Rita yanked a memory card from the laptop and slipped it into Ayobami's hand. Take this, it has duplicates of everything. There's a contact in the British High Commission, a woman named Clara Dent. She handles whistleblower files. Tell her Rita sent you. What about you? Ayobami asked. Rita smiled sadly. I stopped running the day I copied those files. Now go. The door burst open. A gunshot cracked the air. Rita shoved them toward the back exit before collapsing against her table. Ayobami wanted to stop, but Malik pulled her through the alley as another shot splintered wood behind them. They ran until the street opened into the main road. Malik waved down a Danfo bus and shoved a few notes at the conductor. Airport, he gasped. Fast. Inside the crowded bus, the smell of sweat and fuel mingled. Ayobami stared straight ahead, pulse racing. Another friend gone. Another life swallowed by Raymond's shadow. She clenched the tiny memory card. We'll finish this, she whispered. For Mama. For Banjo. For Rita. Malik nodded. We'll send everything tonight. But at the airport gate, security guards were waiting. The big screen above the check-in counters flashed breaking news again. Her face, pulled from gala footage labeled Wanted, cybercriminal connected to gala attack. Travelers pointed. Murmurs rose. That's her. Malik grabbed her hand and bolted toward the maintenance corridor. Guards shouted behind them. They ducked into a stairwell and burst out into the rain-soaked tarmac. Floodlights bathed the runway in harsh white. Over there, a voice yelled. They ran toward a service van. Malik jumped in, hot-wired the ignition, and the engine coughed to life. He hit the gas. Tires squealed. Gunshots cracked the air again. One struck the side mirror, another pierced the tire. The van skidded, spinning off the access road and slamming into a fence. Pain flared through Ayobami's shoulder as glass shattered. Sirens wailed behind them. Malik turned to her, blood trickling down his temple. You have to go, Ao. Take the card. There's a safe cafe downtown, the Palms. Clara Dent checks messages there under the name Book Lady. Leave the files with her. What about you? He smiled faintly. I'll buy you time. Before she could protest, he shoved the door open and sprinted toward the approaching security vehicles, waving his arms. Over here. The guards swarmed him. Ayobami slipped out the passenger side, crawling under the broken fence. Rain drenched her dress as she ran toward the dark beyond the runway, clutching the tiny card that now carried every truth her mother had died for. In the distance, the city lights shimmered like false stars. She whispered into the night, You can't bury me, Raymond. Far away, inside a glass-walled penthouse, Raymond Cole watched the airport footage on a muted screen. Liza stood behind him, her face pale. She's alive, she said. Raymond's reflection smiled in the window. Good, he murmured. A living secret is easier to control than a dead one. He turned from the glass. Call the minister. Tell him to prepare a statement. The girl is delusional, claiming to be my daughter. We'll drown her in her own story. Liza hesitated. And if she reaches the foreign press? Raymond poured himself a drink. Then we remind Lagos who owns the truth. He raised the glass to his reflection. To mercy, he said softly. The cruelest kind. Lagos didn't sleep that night. News vans idled outside the Cole mansion, and every radio station repeated the same headline. Billionaire Raymond Cole disowns fake daughter, claims political blackmail. It was everywhere. On TV, on phones, even on the LED billboards she passed while running through the wet streets of Victoria Island. Her name. Her face. Her crimes. Ayobami's body ached, but she didn't stop until she reached the place Malik had told her about. The Palms Cafe. It was tucked behind an old bookstore, its flickering sign barely visible through the rain. She pushed the door open and stumbled inside. Warm light. The smell of coffee and ink. Only a handful of people sat scattered across the room, heads bent over laptops. Ayobami's soaked slippers squeaked against the floor as she made her way to the back corner. Behind the counter, a middle-aged woman with round glasses and silver braids looked up from her book. Evening, dear, she said, voice calm but watchful. You look like you've wrestled with a storm. I'm looking for Book Lady, Ayobami whispered. The woman's smile didn't change. You found her. Ayobami's knees nearly gave way. She sat quickly, glancing toward the door. I don't have much time. They're looking for me. Book lady, Clara Dent, closed her book, revealing the British High Commission crest embossed in gold on its cover. Show me what you've got. Ayobami pulled the tiny memory card from her pocket and slid it across the table. Everything is here. Proof of what he's done. Murders, stolen identity, laundering lies. I need the world to see it. Clara studied her for a long moment before inserting the card into her tablet. Her eyes flicked back and forth as files began to load. She whistled softly. You weren't exaggerating. She looked up. You realize what happens once this goes out, don't you? The man you're accusing is one of the most connected people on this continent. He'll burn everything, including you, to ash. I already lost everything, Ayobami said quietly. But if I die, the truth will live. Clara's expression softened. You sound like your mother. Ayobami's eyes widened. You knew her? Only by reputation, Clara said. Behind Ajayi, the tailor who stood up to a powerful man and vanished. Some of us never forgot. Ayobami swallowed hard. Then help me finish what she started. Before Clara could respond, the cafe door swung open. 2 police officers stepped inside, scanning the room. Their uniforms gleamed, but their badges were wrong, 1 digit off. Not real police. Clara's smile never faltered. Follow me, she whispered. They slipped through a door behind the counter into a narrow corridor lined with bookshelves. Clara led her to a small storage room, closing the door softly. She tapped her tablet rapidly, sending the files to a secure drive. Once this upload finishes, it goes to an independent server outside the country, she said. No one can pull it down, not even him. Footsteps echoed outside the corridor. Then voices. Check the back, one man barked. The girl's in here somewhere. Ayobami's heart pounded. Clara handed her a small envelope. There's a phone and a prepaid card inside. When you hear the upload confirmation, leave through the side door, head to Oberlin Bus Park and disappear for 24 hours. Understand? What about you? Clara smiled faintly. I'll handle them. I've dealt with bigger liars than your father. Before Ayobami could protest, Clara shoved her gently toward the side exit. Ayobami hesitated at the doorway, looking back at the woman who had risked everything for her. Thank you. Clara winked. Go make truth louder than money. Ayobami slipped out just as the fake officers burst through the front. She ran into the alley, rain pounding against her skin. Behind her, she heard raised voices, then a gunshot. She froze. Another shot. Then silence. Her knees buckled, but she forced herself to move. Clara's last words echoed in her head. Make truth louder than money. She reached the main road, climbed into a passing taxi and ducked low. Oberlin, she whispered. The driver, a grizzled man with kind eyes, nodded. Rough night, eh? She didn't answer. The radio crackled again. Breaking, exclusive statement from Raymond Cole. The woman parading herself as my daughter is part of a conspiracy funded by my enemies. She has mental health issues. I pity her. Ayobami felt anger burn hot behind her eyes. Mental health issues? She muttered. He calls me crazy for speaking the truth. The driver glanced at her in the mirror. You know this Raymond Cole? She didn't reply, but he studied her carefully. You don't look crazy, he said. You look like someone carrying too much truth. Her eyes met his reflection, and for a moment she saw a flash of warmth, something that reminded her of Banjo. When she reached Oberlin, she slipped into the shadows between stalls, listening for footsteps. Her phone vibrated once. Upload complete. She exhaled shakily. It's done, she whispered. But her relief lasted only seconds. A voice came from behind her. Not yet, my daughter. She spun around, and froze. Raymond Cole stood there under a black umbrella, his suit untouched by the rain. 2 bodyguards flanked him. His eyes gleamed cold in the streetlight. You've caused quite a storm, he said, smiling faintly. But storms die. They make noise, flood the streets, and fade. I'm the sky, you can't move me. She backed away. You killed Mama. You killed Banjo. And now you want to silence me too. He sighed. No. I want to save you, from yourself. Save me? She spat. You've destroyed everyone who ever loved me. He took a slow step closer. I didn't destroy you. I made you. You are my blood, my legacy. The world doesn't have to know the ugly parts of our story. Come home, Ayobami. I'll fix this. She shook her head violently. You can't fix murder. Don't be naive, he said softly. In Lagos, truth is what money says it is. I can make you vanish or I can make you famous. Which do you prefer? Her pulse roared in her ears. Neither, she whispered. I prefer freedom. Raymond's smile vanished. Then you've chosen your mother's fate. One of the guards stepped forward, reaching into his jacket. A loud honk split the air, a Danfo bus screeching around the corner, its lights flooding the alley. Startled, Raymond turned slightly. Ayobami grabbed a loose bottle from the ground and hurled it at the guard's head. He staggered. She darted into the street as the bus swerved past, horns blaring. The driver shouted curses, but she was already gone, weaving through the crowd. Behind her, Raymond's voice echoed, furious and cold. You can't hide forever. You're still mine. She ran until her lungs burned. Somewhere above the chaos of the city, thunder rumbled, a sound that felt almost like her mother's voice. If you were Ayobami, would you keep running or turn back and face the billionaire who destroyed everything? Type your answer in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to support this story. Your engagement keeps powerful stories like this alive. Ayobami didn't stop running until her legs gave out at the edge of Third Mainland Bridge. The wind from the lagoon slapped her face and carried the city's sounds, horns, sirens, laughter that didn't belong to her world anymore. She leaned against the cold rail, breathing hard, soaked to the bone. The sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn over Lagos had never looked so cruel. From her pocket, the new phone Clara had given her buzzed. A text appeared on the screen. Unknown number, you think truth saves? Truth only trades one devil for another. Meet me where it began, Morning Star Bakery. No, alone. She stared at the message. Raymond. Her stomach clenched, but another line followed seconds later. Or I send Banjo's family what's left of him. Her blood ran cold. He wasn't bluffing. By the time the first Okadas began roaring down the bridge, Ayobami had made up her mind. Running hadn't saved anyone. The truth was out there now, but unfinished. She needed an ending even if it cost her life. The smell of fresh bread hit her before she saw the bakery. Morning Star, its faded yellow paint and cracked windows unchanged. The place where her mother's last breath began. Inside, the air was thick with flour dust and memory. The new baker, a round-faced woman with tired eyes, looked up from the counter. Good morning, she said softly. You're early. We open soon. I'm meeting someone, Ayobami replied, her voice barely steady. The woman hesitated, then nodded toward the back. He's already here. Ayobami's heart pounded as she walked past the racks of bread. Raymond Cole stood near the old storeroom, dressed in a simple gray suit this time, no entourage, no cameras. Just him, and a quiet that felt heavier than shouting. You came, he said almost gently. Good. You always had your mother's stubbornness. She stopped a few feet away. Why here? Because this is where you were made. He looked around the small bakery, eyes tracing the flour-stained walls. I met her right there. He pointed to the counter. She was laughing about burnt puff-puff. She said I was too proud to know the smell of real work. Ayobami swallowed. And you repaid her by killing her. He turned slowly, his expression unreadable. You think I wanted that? It was an accident. She stepped into the road. The rain was heavy. Don't lie, she snapped. I heard your voice on the recording. You covered it up. You had her body buried without a name. Raymond's composure cracked for the first time. You don't understand what it takes to build an empire, Ao? People die every day for less than what I've done for this country. You think your mother's life was worth destroying all of this? Ayobami's eyes filled with tears. Her life was worth everything. She was the only honest thing you ever touched. He exhaled sharply, then reached into his jacket. You made this public war and now you can end it. Come home. I'll clear your name, send you abroad, give you everything your mother never had. She stared at him, trembling. You want to buy me too? No, his voice softened. I want to protect what's left of my blood. You're not my blood, she said coldly. You're my curse. He stepped closer. Ao. Don't call me that. Their eyes met, hers filled with pain, his with something darker, desperate, almost human. Then he lunged forward, not in rage but fear. Behind you, he shouted. She spun around. A man in a leather jacket, the same one who had tried to stab her at the gala, emerged from the shadows, gun raised. 2 shots exploded. The first missed her, tearing through the wall. The second hit Raymond. He staggered, hand clutching his chest, eyes wide with shock. Ayobami screamed. No. The shooter aimed again, but she hurled a metal tray at him, knocking the gun from his hand. It clattered to the floor. She kicked it away, heart racing. Raymond collapsed, coughing blood. The assassin fled out the back door before she could react. She knelt beside Raymond, hands trembling. "Why did you save me?" He looked up at her, pain etched deep into his face. "Because you were the only thing I ever did right," he gasped. "Your mother, she wanted me to tell you. I didn't kill her on purpose." Tears blurred her vision. "You lied for years, destroyed lives. How can I believe you now?" He coughed, blood staining his shirt. "Because dying men don't have time to lie." His hand fumbled inside his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope, slick with blood. "Take it, the last piece. The world will believe you now." Her fingers closed around it. "Raymond, stay with me. We can get you help." He gave a weak laugh. "Help? I already built hospitals that couldn't save me." His eyes drifted toward the ceiling. "Ayo? Tell the world I tried." Then his body went still. Ayobami stared at him. This man who was her father, her enemy, and her unfinished story, all in one. The bakery was silent except for the steady hum of the refrigerator. She opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a handwritten confession, dated the week before the gala. Read. "To whom it may concern. I, Raymond Cole, also known as Malik Ajayi, confess that my wealth and identity were built on deceit, fraud, and manslaughter. The woman known as Kahind Ajayi was not a stranger, but the mother of my only child, Ayobami. My guilt has followed me like shadow. This confession is my attempt to give her the life I stole." Asterisk. Ayobami pressed the letter to her chest, crying silently. Outside, sirens began to grow louder again, real ones this time. She stood, took one last look at Raymond's lifeless body, and walked out into the morning light, the confession clutched tightly in her hand. She didn't see the man in the leather jacket watching her from across the street, phone pressed to his ear. "She's alive," he said quietly. "And she has it." Pause. Then a woman's voice on the other end, Liza's, answered, cold as stone. "Then it's time we end the story once and for all." By afternoon, every major international network had the footage and documents Clara uploaded. The world finally saw who Raymond Cole truly was, a man built on stolen blood. Protesters filled the streets outside his companies. Government agencies froze his accounts. And somewhere in the crowd, Ayobami stood quietly, wearing a scarf to hide her face, watching justice unfold not as revenge, but as truth. The sun sank slowly over Lagos, dyeing the skyline gold. Helicopters hovered above the city as headlines rolled across every screen. Billionaire philanthropist revealed as imposter. Raymond Cole dead in shootout. The maid who exposed a tyrant. Ayobami sat at the edge of Freedom Park, wrapped in an old shawl. The crowd around her buzzed with energy, vendors shouting, camera crews interviewing strangers, chants of justice for Kahind, echoing from the streets. For the first time in her life, people were saying her mother's name aloud. Not whispering. Not afraid. The world finally knew. But even with the city roaring in victory, Ayobami felt hollow. Justice didn't bring people back. It only left you standing in the silence they should have filled. A small TV beside a food stall replayed Raymond's last interview from months ago, the one where he'd smiled at the camera and said, "Mercy is the heart of greatness." She turned away. "Funny," came a familiar voice behind her. "He wanted to be remembered as merciful." Ayobami looked up sharply. Liza Cole stood a few meters away, wearing sunglasses and a black suit. Her lipstick was perfect, her calm terrifying. "How did you find me?" Ayobami asked, standing slowly. Liza's smile was razor-thin. "My brother may have lost control, but I haven't. You think this ends with his death? I'm not afraid of you." "You should be," Liza said, stepping closer. "You embarrassed powerful people, little girl. Do you think governments like to admit they were fooled for years? Do you think those businessmen will let you live knowing you can expose them too?" Ayobami squared her shoulders. "If fear kept me quiet, I'd still be cleaning floors in your mansion." Liza chuckled softly. "You sound like your mother. Always thinking truth changes the world. It doesn't. It only changes you and then it kills you." She reached into her handbag. Ayobami's muscles tensed, expecting a gun. But Liza pulled out an envelope instead. "Raymond left something else. His will. He named you as sole heir. Every property, every account, everything." Ayobami froze. "What?" "His lawyers will contact you," Liza continued, eyes cold. "He wanted redemption. You're his final mercy. The media will adore it. The maid who inherited the empire." Ayobami stared at the paper in disbelief. "I don't want his money. I don't want his name." Liza smirked. "Then it will go to the state." and they'll bury it under charity. The same men who helped Raymond will buy it back for pennies. Think carefully. You can't erase blood, Ayobami, but you can decide what it pays for. She dropped the envelope at Ayobami's feet, then turned to leave. Liza, Ayobami called. Why are you helping me? Liza stopped, her silhouette framed by the dying light. Because he saved you instead of me, she said softly. And I want to see what kind of woman was worth his last breath. Then she was gone. Weeks passed. The story spread beyond Africa. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera. Documentaries called her the Silent Storm. Influencers used her face for activism campaigns. People wrote songs about her mother. But fame didn't feel like freedom. Ayobami used the inheritance not to live large, but to rebuild. She paid Banjo's children's school fees, gave Rita's husband a proper lawyer, and funded a scholarship in her mother's name for women who refused to stay silent. The Cole mansion was sealed by investigators, but she returned one last time, alone. She walked through the marble halls that once echoed with orders and fear. The air was thick with dust and memory. She entered Raymond's study. The desk was still there, the hidden drawer open, empty now. She placed a framed photo on top of it, a picture of her mother smiling beside a sewing machine. Rest now, Mama, she whispered. Your voice is louder than ever. Outside, thunder rumbled, a gentle one, not angry. Rain began to fall, tapping softly on the windows. Ayobami stepped out into the courtyard, lifted her face to the sky, and let the rain wash over her. Not as a servant, not as a victim, but as a woman who had turned pain into truth. Malik's voice came from behind her. They're ready for the press conference, he said. She turned to him, smiling faintly. Then let's end this story properly. They drove through the wet streets to the Eco Convention Center, the same hall where her nightmare had begun. This time the banners read, Justice Foundation, Truth Has No Price. The hall was filled with journalists, activists, students. Ayobami walked onto the stage, her steps steady. The same spot where Raymond once stood under blinding lights. She looked into the cameras and began. My name is Ayobami Cole. I was once a maid in the house of a man who called himself a hero. But heroes aren't born from lies. My mother taught me that silence is never strength, that even a whisper of truth can shake palaces. She paused, letting her words sink in. The truth cost me everything. But it gave me back my name and my mother's peace. To every girl working in silence, every person told they are too small to fight back, remember, storms don't ask permission before they change the sky. Applause broke out, filling the hall. Ayobami smiled faintly. Somewhere deep inside, she felt her mother's spirit smiling too. As cameras flashed, she turned to Malik. It's over, she whispered. He nodded. No, Ayo. It's beginning. She looked out at the cheering crowd, the cameras, the rising light beyond the windows. A new dawn had come to Lagos, one not bought by wealth or power, but earned by a woman's courage. And though the city would one day forget her name, the truth she unleashed would never sleep again. If you were Ayobami, would you forgive Raymond for saving your life, or would you carry the pain forever? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so others can experience this powerful tale of truth, betrayal, and redemption.